architecture, painting, and websites. As simple as that. Oh, just full screen. Down.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, when you're talking about a church, we've all seen churches, we've all been inside churches. What does it feel like when you first walk into a church? The first thing that hits you if you're walking in normally is these rows that are, lined up and all leading straight down the aisle. That aisle is converging to one certain point. If your eye goes horizontally across the benches, they meet these pillars. The pillars go up and up and up and up, and until they arch on the top. And every single arch makes a line that leads straight down once again to the center. It's all about these converging lines that force you almost, no matter where you look, no matter what you're doing, all of it is centered to one point, which is the pulpit where the cross is situated. This is because, as a space, the church is designed. I mean, a lot of religious buildings are designed with only one idea and one focus in mind, to bring out that spirituality and to kind of overpower your visual sense into just one idea, faith. This is how. And then the next picture, that's an example of architecture. The same goes for all great artists. When they're painting, this is the Musicians by Caravaggio. When you first look at the painting, naturally the first thing we look at are people's eyes and when they're looking at you. Here what's interesting is the two people looking at you. So usually when you would look at a painting and you see one person looking at you, you stare into those eyes and that's about it. But when you paint two people looking at you, you break the inertia and you force the viewer to switch. That first movement, and you're in his control. First you're looking at the central guy, you're looking at his eyes, then you notice the other guy on his left. Then you notice the emotion. The emotion, like the eyes are half shut, the lips are half parted, gives off a sense of sensuality and sexuality in the painting itself. That leads you to the third guy on the right, and his arm. Look at the way his arm is the brightest part of the painting actually, and it leads you straight down and to your left to his thighs, and you can actually, if you are following that kind of story that Caravaggio's painting, you can see his thighs kind of shoved between the guy's crotch actually, and all of that is done just to tell you a story of these boys, and it's actually okay, enough of that. It's too stimulating.
What's the third thing?
No, there's no third thing. The third thing is websites, and for that I don't need to show you a photograph. Just think of Facebook. When you open up your Facebook page, it's designed as an infinite scroll because it's designed to make you just stay on the website as long as possible. So your eyes never really move. You just stick to the center of the frame and the website moves relative to you. That's the way the whole website is designed, and that's what I mean when I talk about design in space. It's not necessary that you're going to have the budget to build churches and cathedrals every film you make, but it's important to recognize in a space what the focal point is, where your eyes are being led to. Once you recognize that in a space, then you can design action and choreography around that space, because you understood that subconsciously people will end up looking there. And here I'm talking about movement in terms of character choreography. Like, this is very simple. How you direct attention through movement will decide who the audience is paying attention to at any given point of the frame. And that means whether it's your primary character, your hero, or the background dancer. How you have designed and choreographed their movement will define who's looking at what when. So it's important to understand that whoever's closest to the camera is not always the most important person in the frame. Whoever's grabbing the audience attention is. So one thing that isn't used in normal traditional filmmaking is is the use of peripheral vision. Because as human beings, our evolutionary trait is that we are most perceptive to movement in our peripheral vision. That's how we detect predators and danger and autos, right? So this isn't used in normal filmmaking because we don't have to. But this is what we can use in VR. The protagonist is not always the most important visual aspect of the frame. A little movement in the corner of your eyes will always pull you there. And that's how you can direct attention from your protagonist to, I mean, when I mean pull attention away from characters, I usually mean pulling attention away from the hot chick, and for once, God, please look at this other character. He is also important. He is part of the film, you know? And then sound design. So we've talked a lot about sound design, but one thing to keep in mind about sound is that it will form, no matter how you are editing your film, it will always form the basis and the context for reality of the viewer. What that means is you're creating a sound universe, you're creating every single aspect that makes a space real, and once it's real, you can play with it. Only once it's real can you start playing with the space. Otherwise, we are so perceptive to mistakes in sound, whether it's in film or in real life, that unless it feels real, nothing feels real. And sorry. Yeah, and I would actually combine these two, like restricting vision and color. Restricting vision and not, when I say creating frames within frames, I don't necessarily mean in the way that we're taught in film school, like you have the guy in a window or standing against a door necessarily, but understanding shapes and how things can lead a night and how do I explain? I should know how to explain this actually. But the idea is color and shapes and I forgot. Creating frame within a frame, color. Wait. Yeah, sorry, my mistake. I'm so sorry. When I talk about restricting vision, I'm talking about when are you showing what in terms of, you know what, I've totally forgotten. Sorry. Yeah, but I do want to talk about color. Color is important. Maybe frame within, I might edit that out in the next. But when I talk about color, color is intrinsically something that we understand very well. That's why traffic lights are red. That's why green is go, stop is red. These kind of colors have meaning and they can be used in VR to direct attention. If any of you have played video games, have you played video games? Anyone? Their color has a lot of meaning because they tell you where you are in your journey. You know, blue means magic, red means fire, green means good, green means you're going to the place that you want to be. These kind of color theories you can use in VR as well and pull attention away from certain spaces to another space, make audiences feel like they're achieving something, like they're getting closer to the end of the film or this presentation. And these are all just different ways that you can draw attention, direct attention in VR. This is also like just the starter kit. There's so much that goes into making a film and the physicality of actually being in a VR set. Do we have time for a case study?
How long? Yeah, 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Sure, okay.
Which one do you want?
I was just going to do my mother's class. It might not be 5 minutes.
Make it 5 minutes.
Alright, so I'm just gonna run through this real quickly. Just to give you an example of one of the films that we tried making, we did make it. We tried making well at least. We made this, it's a horror drama film about this woman who comes home from work one day and she's having a conversation with her dad on the phone and she's being followed around her 1 BHK in Bombay by a ghost. What I wanted to do here was create 2 parallel narratives, one visual and one oral. So the audience can listen to the conversation throughout the film and get one story and watch the ghost on the other end and get another story. I did this because I wanted to see where audiences would look, how you can combine the complete visual of one. Because if you have a woman and a ghost in the same room, where are you gonna look? Most people are gonna look at the ghost, right? So that's what I wanted to do. I want to create a kind of parallel narrative, but not between stories, but between sound and visual. So what we didn't do was we didn't use a lot of horror tropes like jump scares and stuff like that. I wanted to build a very slow, burning kind of tense scene, because visually there's a ghost in your apartment, but orally they're just talking about life. And the father and the daughter are just talking about life and her future. So this case study is about how we design the space, because we built the 1 BHK, and this is the first design that we had. As you can see, you enter on the right side, and I wanted to place the kitchen on the left, the bedroom on the left, and the kitchen on the right. And I was hoping that audiences would choose. You either look this way and get the ghost, or you look that way, and the woman will be on the other side of the room, on the other side of the house. So I wanted to make audiences make a choice. So we built a mock-up of this set. We did a rehearsal. We shot it over there, and do you know what ended up happening? When I showed it to people, they didn't look here or there. They chose to stare at the middle of the wall and then look at the story from one eye each. Like, we wanted to give them a choice, and they chose Z. Like, I couldn't have predicted this as a writer. Like, is it not interesting enough for you? What more do you want? There's a ghost and this half-naked woman. What do you want? And they're looking at this wall, and that's when I realized the set has failed. So we had to go back, rebuild the set, and this time we changed it to this. And here you can see that the kitchen and the bedroom are much more separated. So you can't see both at the same time.